Hello, everybody. So I'd like to introduce you to my next guest, who is a lovely lady called Kim, who is obviously a nail practitioner. And she has her story to tell, a part of this whole allergy epidemic and how it's affected her and her family as well. So Kim, over to you. Please share with us your story.
Hi, so I used a product that worked well for me from November 2018. I was a nail technician part-time alongside another job.
Could you talk up a little bit? Could you talk a little bit closer or talk a little bit louder? I've got you up on full volume, but you're quite quiet. Okay.
Thank you. So I used a product that worked well for me from November 2018 as a part-time technician along my other part-time job of 10 years. In August 2019, I was aware of some issues over social media that started to get me a little bit worried. Initially, I was a little bit skeptical over the whole issue. And over the course of a month, I just kept seeing these reoccurring issues. Later on, I was then aware of some friends who had some issues with separation, and that was a little bit too close to home for me. I hadn't had any issues that I could relate to the allergy epidemic at that time. And I'd invested a lot of money into training and stocking the particular brand I had. But I just didn't want to risk it. I just couldn't, morally it was wrong. So I needed to do something. I contacted my brand to just try and get a little bit of reassurance, really. I just got a general reply, not really interested, dismissive, blaming texts. That, you know, I wasn't convinced that that was the issue. And I know that there were credible people that were affected too. So something wasn't right. Unfortunately, then I was made redundant in 2019 unexpectedly. At that time, I felt I needed more time to research brands, and it was just such an emotional time. As one of the main earner of the family, I've got 3 young children under the age of 10, and I have a mortgage as well, and I just don't have time to spend sort of wasting money unnecessarily in case things didn't work. I just couldn't afford to stop using what I had. So yeah, I spent more time researching and came down to 2 brands. I had to buy their lamps and their tester products, but it was just so stressful. I didn't feel that they were right for me. They weren't working with my style of working. It was frustrating and really devastating every time that it would fail. I would try different ways. I didn't want to put it on my clients in case they lost confidence in me. I can't afford to lose any more clients. I can't afford to lose any business. Contacting these new brands, I just didn't feel like there was enough support or advice. I do admit that I was probably quite emotional and kind of a bit irrational at times, trying to get the information that I needed. I do appreciate a lot of the brands need these secret tips kept to themselves so that you can take the training. But someone in my position, I couldn't afford to take the training and spend money on products that I didn't know if I was going to be using. The cost of having the family and the mortgage takes priority, and I'm sure it does for everyone. So fast forward another couple of months, in November, I actually found a brand that worked for me on my trials. The brand I loved, the ethos, it was everything I wanted it to be. They were professional, transparent, the customer service was good. I found out they were independently tested. So from that reassuring process, I knew that I wasn't going to have the same issue. The only trouble was that their training wasn't for a couple of months. I didn't want to use the new product until I'd been properly trained on it, for the same reasons. I didn't want to lose clients if it didn't work. So I had to stick with using my old brand. It made me physically sick and anxious, worried about what was going to happen. the stress, not sleeping, clients returning with separation, or permanent allergies was just unbearable. Every time clients left, I felt guilty that I was doing something wrong, and I'm sure that a lot of my quality of work was affected at the time. I just couldn't order the whole rebrand until I knew it worked. It's more money that it costs hundreds to rebrand. So fast forward to the training. I went to their headquarters and got trained by the brand owners. I felt training was thorough, and they actually cared. They understood what the issues were, and it was just the relief that you feel when you feel like you've been listened to and you found something that you can trust is just immense. And I broke down in the training session with all these other amazing techs that are, some have become my friends now. But just the relief to have something that you know is going to be good on your clients is overwhelming. Now, whenever I get certain products coming back from clients that have had to go elsewhere, I mean, with 3 children, I've had quite a few periods of isolation with the whole COVID situation, and clients have had to go elsewhere to get service done, understandably. But sometimes when they've come back with certain products on their nails, I do notice that my skin is reacting from it.
Oh.
So I've now decided, much to my disappointment, because I don't want to turn anybody away, but I won't take off other people's products now. I know I can do a good job taking it off, and I know I can do it safely and correctly, but because of the worry of allergies, I'm not going to do it, because I can't risk my career being subject to any sort of allergy going forward.
And so that's potentially losing you clients, isn't it? Because
exactly.
If you know you can do a good removal job, you can really bring a client round to you.
Absolutely.
But you're not getting that opportunity now.
No, and it's the worry that if they don't want to go somewhere else to have it taken off, that they'll rip it off or damage the nails themselves. Yeah. And you don't want that for them. So the right thing to do is to take it off, but not when I can feel it doing something to me. No. And I can't afford that. So so I won't remove certain products now. And also going forward, I'll only use clear products, because I'm so worried that potentially in the future it could happen, or I'm a bit more aware. Allergies are around. You don't want to become complacent. You still have to be very vigilant. But it does make you think. Even you can have the best products in the world, it can happen at any time.
Yeah. So all of this, all of your particular situation and nightmare started pre-pandemic then, and you were dealing with it pre-pandemic, and then you went into the pandemic with all the lockdowns. So as the main breadwinner for your family, so that you're dealing with new costs for research and rebranding, and then you're dealing with not being able to work at all, and then the cost of the cost of rebranding, the cost of training, and so I mean that is a really almost impossible situation to deal with.
Yeah, and actually it goes a little bit further, because through the pandemic, because I was employed in 2019, I didn't qualify for any government support whatsoever. I don't have any other business that I can do online. So it was particularly difficult. And then you have the whole issue of the homeschooling. And actually it came, I mean, we just got on with it. There's, everyone has tough times. There's nothing you can do about it. You just get on. But unfortunately, April 2021 last year, I actually suffered a heart attack.
Good grief.
So they couldn't find a specific reason for it. So the only thing that I can put it down to is stress.
Wow.
So whether that contributed to it, I have no idea. I suspect part of it is, and the worry if your clients are going to come back. But
and you've got
yeah.
and you've got children.
Yeah, 3 children, three under 10 at the time. So yeah, it really did take a knock on all of our confidence, really. But I feel like I'm the other side of it now.
Are you?
I feel like I'm in a good place. I'm happy with what I'm using, and I think you can never have enough education. I'm still always looking to learn new things, and I'm excited to see where the routes take us. But yeah.
So you found a brand that have good customer service. They care.
Yes.
They've been independently tested. So you're confident that the information that they're giving you with regards to their ingredients and their percentages, etc., which is part of the problem, you're confident that what they're doing for you can be as confident as you possibly can with your new brand.
Absolutely. I mean, the customer service is brilliant. If you've got any queries, there's a whole community of experienced people, educators, ambassadors that are ready to jump at whatever time. I mean, sometimes I've got so carried away with the research, you feel like you're online at 10:30 at night and you accidentally email the page.
Press send.
And you get yeah, that's it. And you get a reply.
Wow.
Within minutes. So you don't ever have to wait. And they have brought out whole new ranges, hypoallergenic ranges, and if you're not sure of anything, they're always there to jump whenever you need help or reassurance. I think I pestered the brand owners so much when I was looking for my new brand, and no question was a silly question, and I couldn't contact them too much. Nothing was any trouble. Anything I needed, they were right there to answer my questions.
Well, I mean, this whole allergy situation has, this is why I want to do this series, because I want the sort of wider context to see that, yeah, all right, it's, we deal with hazardous chemicals, we do. But this situation that we've been in, that is like from around about 2014, 2015, really, is very pre-pandemic. It's altered people's lives. It's altered their mental health. Well, they've had problems with their mental health. I mean, for goodness sake, you had a heart attack. I mean, as you say, it can't prove what caused it, but, as you said, in your mind, that can't have helped, basically, can it? You're the breadwinner, you've got 3 children. This situation has so seriously affected people. And I, the point of this is I want to make it personal. I want like you and my other guests to tell real stories. But what is great as well is, yes, they are real stories, but I also want people to know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And what is so great about your story is you found it. You found your light, you know the way forward now, and you've got an amazing amount of support.
Yeah, definitely. It was worth all the hours and hours of research to find what I found.
To find what you found. And I mean, this is what it takes, isn't it? Everybody has to do their own due diligence. You have to be responsible for your own career and your own business. But, I think this situation has knocked so many for 6. It certainly knocked you for 6, didn't it, back then? But, moving on to now, 2022, you found a great brand. It's as safe as it can be. You've got a massive amount of customer support. And it sounds like, is this true? It sounds like you've got your confidence back.
Yeah, definitely. I certainly have, I think.
It's a shame that you don't feel you can remove other people's. I totally understand why. I really do, especially as when you have removed other people's work, you're starting to react. When you remove it, you can feel your hands starting to be itchy. So you absolutely need to stay away from that, because once you've got that full-blown allergy, it sounds more like a sensitivity right now, but once you get that full-blown allergy, that's it for life.
Yeah, definitely. I
So
mean, and I cover up and I use gloves in a bottle. I use really thick, good quality, rather expensive gloves
yeah,
at the moment. But if that can't keep it away, it's not worth the risk. I'm not going to put myself through that.
no, yeah, I think you've managed to survive quite a lot, actually, and you're, close to coming out the other side.
Yeah, I'm really pleased. And the advice I'd give is take time to research.
Yeah,
Don't rebrand overnight. And it's not a popularity contest. It's not about who can shout the loudest. You really have to do your research.
you do, because how do this is something I've said in one of the other little stories, and I say it quite a lot, is when, the internet is a wonderful thing, but it's also a bad thing. It's it's good and it's evil. But when you're on social media and you're asking for advice, it's really hard to know who's giving you that advice. Are they giving you that advice from a place of knowledge, or are they giving you that advice from a place of opinion, not based on knowledge? So it's really hard. What you did is exactly the right thing. You did your own research and you didn't rely on looking at a whole variety of comments from other people, because how do you know if they're telling you the right thing? Facts are facts and opinions are opinions, and how do you differentiate between the two?
Yeah, definitely.
But you've done the right thing, and you're getting to the right side after, I mean, presumably, all the money you've spent, obviously all the anxiety that you have. I mean, the fact it made you physically sick is horrific. The fact you had a heart attack for whatever cause that was, it's now in the past. And now you can look to the future with a great brand, with great support, and build your business back.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm really pleased now. My books are full, and yeah, my clients have never had healthier nails. So,
Amazing,
yeah.
Amazing. But you had to go through all of that to get here, which is which is the story of our lifetime at the moment. We've had to live through a pandemic which nobody expected, but from us in the nail sector, we have had, and we are still living through this particular situation, which isn't easy for anybody. So thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for giving me your time and sharing your story. So as horrible as it was, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you can get there. And as you say, do your own research and don't scrimp on that.
Definitely.
Keep doing it until you find what is exactly right.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you so much, Kim. I really appreciate your time. Other people will appreciate hearing your story, because it's a horrible story, but it's also a story of hope as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, so I'm back with another video, and I'd like to introduce my guest, Amy. Now, Amy, as opposed to the other videos that we've done, she's not a nail professional, she's a client. And she's a client that has been a relatively long-term client of a specific salon close to where she lives, and has religiously gone every 2 weeks to get her nails done, because she loves her nails to look perfect all the time, and it's a really important aspect of her own grooming and the work that she does. And so she's been doing this for quite a few months, been very happy with the results. And then a couple of months ago, maybe a bit longer, the worst happened, and she developed a horrific reaction and had the most awful things happen to her nails. So she couldn't show them, and we all know what that's like. If we are very uncomfortable with how our hands look, we hide them, and it sort of stops us being the character who we are. Unfortunately, this was compounded by the use of an e-file on nails that were already damaged. So she's had a pretty horrific situation to deal with. And in what she tells me, she spent hundreds of hours Googling and trying to find answers on what she can do to make it better, to make her nails look presentable in the job she does. And there was one comment she made to me a while ago that when she sees people, she loves dogs and she can't even pat the dogs because her hands, she's just so, you know, uncomfortable with the look of her hands. She does have a solution now. So the light at the end of the tunnel has arrived. But as with all the other interviews that I've done, I want to make the focus on real people, real situations, because we talk about the products a lot, but at the end of all this horrible situation that we're in, there are real people suffering real problems, and that is what I want to focus on. So here's Amy. Thank you so much, Amy, for agreeing to do this. I know you've had many weeks of horror. So if you'd like to tell your story, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, sure. So I have a complex form of PTSD, and one of the ways in which I have to look after myself, so that's mentally and emotionally, but also I've been going to a salon for quite a while because I go there to have massages and facials regularly, because that helps me to relax, to decompress, and it's almost a form of therapy really for my PTSD. And it's a nice treat and it makes me feel good, and then obviously that helps me. And I started a new job a year ago, which is very customer facing, and I'm working with lots of different people every day, traveling all around the south of the country. So I thought I'll start getting my nails done. So I looked at the treatments that the salon were having, and there was one that was meant to be really good for your nails, to sort of help not rebuild them, but to like nourish them, to help keep them strong, etc. And I thought, oh, okay, that sounds really good. I'll have that, you know, because my nails will look nice, but it's giving me, I don't know, some benefits as well. So I started having it 9 months ago, and it was brilliant. I loved it. It was great. I loved the colours, and I couldn't fault it. And yes, it was benefiting my nails, which I thought was great. It's brilliant. And it wasn't until I started having my nails done that I realised how many people comment on your nails and notice your nails. So, you know, I went to the pet shop to buy some dog food, and the chap said, "Oh, your nails are so lovely." And I was like, "Oh, thank you." You know, my mum commented on them, my friends commented on them, and then actually you realise that, you know, when people look at your face, they look at your eyes, you know, and when they look at your hands, they look at your nails. So of course I was really proud of that, and I felt polished and refined, and I felt good in myself. And I didn't think I'd ever have any reactions. And then I went in, and I just remember it so vividly. I went in on the 2nd of March, as I normally did every 2 weeks. I oil my nails like religiously as well. And the therapist used an e-file, so they'd all been trained, the salon staff had, in using an electronic file, so because it helped to give a better finish. So of course I was like, yeah, great, go for it. And I was really impressed, and I can remember looking at my hands, like my nails bare before they put the polish on, and I was like, yeah, that's a really good finish, it's great. And applied the product, and I then noticed, literally about 5-6 days later, on my middle finger on my right hand, it was as if the polish had removed from the middle of the nail, but was still attached on the outside. And because my nail was quite long anyway, I thought, oh, I'll just trim it, because it was too long for me. And as I did that, all of the polish fell off, and it exposed what I would describe as sort of a really gammy, bruised looking nail. And I was like, oh my God, like what's happened there? So I went and I had an appointment booked at the salon anyway the next day, because I had a big weekend booked. My husband had retired. It was a belated birthday present. So there were 10 of us going, and we paid for all of us to go to a big Airbnb in the West Country. We got a private chef in. You know, it was a really lovely weekend to celebrate. So of course I was getting my nails done, I was getting my hair done, everything. I went in, The staff are really good. They took photos, they spoke to the salon owner. I can't fault them. We then took the polish off all the nails, and it exposed what I would describe as visible signs of trauma, injury. I don't know the word, but for me, I'd describe it as trauma. And I was a bit like, okay, it wasn't too bad. But they said, we're not going to put the product back on again. I said, no, okay, that's fine. That's not a problem. The next morning I woke up and I was just horrified. I just sat up in bed and I was like, oh my God, it's like within 24 hours of the polish having come off, like it was just horrendous. Like it was like white, the bruising, like I could see like what looked like bloodlines, like underneath my nails. So I took photos and I sent them to the salon owner, and I was like, what is this? What's gone on? Like, I've never had anything like this. And she, she was great. She called me that evening, and she's been very good since then. But I was just gobsmacked. I was like, what is this? What's going on? Like, and of course then I can't really think of my nails because I've got to organise this weekend. So this was on the Thursday, and Friday we were going down to the West Country. And it was just things like holding a glass of wine, and we just paid thousands of pounds like for this accommodation and a private chef, and I'm too apprehensive to hold a glass of wine and to converse with my dearest friends. And and of course they're friends, so they're supportive and they're lovely, they were kind, and but I just felt really bad, like I just felt like the weekend was just like taken away from me, all because of my nails. And then from that point onwards to where we are now, I've lost all my nails. I thought I was going to keep my thumbs, but no, they've gone as well. And all I've got left is what I would describe as sort of like a crescent moon shape of a nail, literally about, I don't know, 3 millimeters long from my cuticle. And they look awful. I mean, like, just disgusting. Like, I look at my hands and I just don't even want to touch anything. And then I never thought that losing my nails would cause such an acute relapse in my PTSD. So I've got running parallel to the trauma and discomfort to my hands, I've now got a relapse of my PTSD. And I'm not a nail technician. I don't work in beauty, so I don't even know where to go, who to turn to, what to Google, what to ask, what the terminology is. I liaised with the salon. They said to liaise with the company, the product, who I know they are nicknamed. They're called the White Gel Bottle. I spoke to them. They're about as useful as a chocolate fireguard. They just told me to go to my GP. They will take clippings and get an allergy test. Been to my GP so many times because of my nails and my PTSD. They said they don't do allergy testing like that. They don't take nail clippings. And if they were to, that would be because they suspect bacterial or fungal. So even the special advisory department at the White Gel Bottle company, their advice was just completely flawless. It was wrong. So I then thought, okay, I need to find answers. So I then booked an appointment at a dermatologist in Harley Street in London. I had to take time out from work to do that. I've had to take time out of work to go to the GP, to speak to people, to speak to specialists. So I saw the dermatologist. He'd never seen anything like this, and he was quite horrified. And I was just like, yeah, okay, I get that. What is it? What's going on? I just want answers. Once I know what's happened, I can then try and find a solution for it. He, as a process of elimination, had concluded it was either a reaction to the product and or the e-file, but he tended to go towards the latter because in the last 9 months everything had been fine, and the only thing that had changed was the use of the e-file. So I get that. but also he couldn't discount it was an allergy as well. So but he ruled out it wasn't bacterial, it wasn't fungal, it wasn't inflammatory disease like psoriasis. And he also confirmed the presence of like splinter hemorrhaging. Is it oncoliosis?
Onycholitis.
That's it, yeah.
Onycholitis, yeah, the lifting.
Yeah, and a couple of other conditions which I can't even pronounce or remember, which was good. So I was like, okay.
You had hyperkeratosis as well.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah.
So I came away from London having some answers, but more questions. And then obviously I'd been in touch with yourself as well. So, but of course that still didn't leave me with solution. Like I can't live with my nails like that. What nails? I don't have any nails. I can't live with this, with what's going on. Like it's destroying my life and it's destroying my mental health. And I've spent the last 4 years rebuilding myself with my PTSD to a point that I can now function. I can leave the house, I can go to the shops, and I'm now regressing. And that is really scary. I don't want to go back to that place. You know, I've had to change my PTSD. I was medically retired from my previous job, and it's been a long road to get to where I am now, and only through the support of friends, family, and you know, 2 years worth of therapy. So now started my marathon Googling, like, and for people like me, it is really hard because I don't know what to Google. I don't know where to start. I don't know if the people that I'm talking to, are they the correct people? What they are telling me, does that have some provenance? Or are they qualified to say it? Do they have the experience? And there was so much conflicting. And obviously you've been a really good source of navigation for me through this process. And I managed to find a chap called Ian Wood, who is been amazing and has helped me to find a product and a solution, which he kindly took on in liaising with their head office in Germany. And they came back and said 100% this is the treatment that I can have. He helped me find a suitably qualified and experienced therapist who was happy to do the treatment. They provided her for free the products to use. Yes, it's about an hour away, but I'm happy to do that. I can take my laptop with me and just go and work in a coffee shop before and after. So we've done a patch test on one of my nails, in that she has put the product on, and it's basically a reconstructed nail made out of a special gel. And yeah, it does look like a real nail, and I haven't had a reaction. To say that I'm over the moon is an understatement. Like, this is going to be a game changer for me. But it's also, you know, as well as that, I've got everyday symptoms, just things like trying to take coins out of a purse, trying to open a can of a drink, or to open a tin of dog food or tin of tomatoes for cooking, doing up buttons on my shirt. That's why I wear polo tops and t-shirts, because I have to get my husband to help me put on my buttons, putting on my shoelaces. Like, I didn't know how much having nails, not even long nails, just be short nails, how instrumental they are. And just picking up a can of drink, you know, I feel like there's nothing at the end of my nails. Washing my hair, just putting my hand into my laptop bag to get something is painful. You know, I've got sensitivity to warm water, sensitivity to cold water, so I'm constantly wearing gloves, constantly oiling my nails as well, because I want to nourish them as much as I can. You know, it has changed my life for the worst, but the worst of all is my PTSD. So, you know, my hypervigilance is back. So even just my husband walking into the bathroom when I'm brushing my teeth, I jump out of my skin. Noises are a really big trigger for me. So supermarkets are kind of my nemesis, because obviously you've got kids, things drop from the shelf, so that makes me jump. And then I'm very much in an alert moment. So I've reduced going to the supermarket. I don't go out as much. I'm not going to any social functions, because when you're holding a drink or a glass, or just you're eating, people will see your nails. They want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. So I'm becoming more isolated, and I'm almost ostracizing myself in these situations. I'm not, in my work, I'm keeping my hands in my pockets or in my jeans. That looks unprofessional. People think that I'm not conducting myself properly, and one of my sites, we have a cafe, and it's really doggy friendly, and we've got a really good following. People come in with their dogs, and it's a treat. I'm in there having a coffee, working, and then you just want to go and cuddle these dogs. And I find myself not doing that, because I don't want the owners to see my hand stroking their dogs. So they're like, "Oh, don't you want to say hello to my dog?" And I'm just like, "Oh no, I'm rushing. I'm out the door, and nice to see you." And it breaks my heart. And they don't understand. And yeah, I could tell them, but I don't want to have to keep going around like a broken record, telling everyone, "Oh, I've got my hands in my pockets because, by the way, all my nails have fallen off." And people profile, people judge. They think because you've got manky nails that you're unhygienic, that you're this and that. And yeah, it's upsetting. I get people looking at them, and you can see their eyes, and they can't hide their reaction, and it makes me feel like I'm like chewing gum on their trainers, and it's not a nice feeling.
And so all this came just because you wanted nice nails.
Yeah, and I feel really conflicted, because in the grand context of things, there's so much going on, and I feel guilty feeling like this.
Well, one of the good things that you said, I know you couldn't talk about this before you found a solution, because it was so difficult to talk about. But one of the good things that you said, one of the things that makes me feel better about the industry is at the salon that you've been going to, they really tried to help, didn't they?
Yes, they've been really
weren't
good.
dismissive, or they tried their hardest. And I know one of the messages you sent me was that the salon owner, it's broken her heart, because she's so horrified by what's happened. And this is why I really wanted to focus on the impact of this situation on real people. You happen to be somebody that's had PTSD that came about for a whole another reason. You've rebuilt your life. You've done everything you can to get everything back together. And just because you wanted to feel good about how you look, about your own self-image, which should be the easiest thing to do. And you do it. I mean, I've said it a lot, that if you're unhappy with your hands, you see them all the time, particularly with laptops and typing, and you see them all the time. If you're having a not great hair day, you have to look in the mirror to remind to know that, oh, my hair looks awful today, or whatever, or I haven't got makeup on, but with your hands there in front of your face the whole time. And it's really important that if you want nice nails, not everybody does, but a lot of people do. If you want nice nails and they're part of you and your own grooming, to have this happen, to not only not have nice nails, but to have the horrors that you've had, no nails. Nails are there for a reason. Everything in our body is there for a reason, and nails are there for a reason. And the reason isn't to paint them pretty colors. The reason is to do exactly what you've described. Pick things up, dexterous. They protect the last bone of the finger, and you've discovered that they are there for a reason. And when you haven't got them, you've got a problem.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, it's like if you have a spot on your face, you can cover it up quite well with cover up and makeup. You can disguise certain things, if you can color your hair. But, when you physically lose your nails, there's what do? You can't just put cover up on it. And so it's dealing with the physical trauma of losing my nails. But then, that's what's been more disabling is how it's affected my PTSD and my mental health. And if it wasn't for the fact that I've got a really good employer and really good support from my husband and my family and my friends, then I don't know where we wouldn't be having this conversation, because I wouldn't have that support network to help for me to do this. So yeah.
It's been a journey, hasn't it? But I mean, one of the good things is that in talking to you today, which has really been the first time you felt you could talk about it, is because you have found the solution.
Definitely. So which is amazing. And the lady that I'm going to, I mean, like, you can just, she's so like fastidious, like everything is like, her workstation is just like, I'm in awe of it. And you know, when you can see her own nails are just absolutely stunning. And you know, she's so passionate and committed, like you are, in helping me and to get a solution. And she's passionate in advertising that, you know, don't let this experience sort of, you know, stop you from going back into having beauty treatments, because, you know, there are some rogue products out there, but it's no reflection on the clinician. And I think that's where I'm really glad that I've got the support from the salon, because they've been amazing. And you know, when I've spoken to them, it's nothing that they have done intentionally. It's quite clear it's the product exacerbated by the e-file. But yeah, having found a solution, and one that is healthy and that I'm not allergic to and is good, is going to be a game changer for me, literally. You know, like, my mental health, I'm hoping, will improve. And you know, and then starts another journey of recovery and healing, and hopefully moving on from this all.
Yeah, I mean, one good thing, from what I've seen of your nails, they will recover. It will take a while, because first of all, the new and healthy nail needs to grow, and it also needs to reattach to the nail bed. And so, you know, you're probably looking at sort of anything from like 5 to 10 months, really, because a whole nail grows from start to finish in around about 5 months. So your new nail is growing, but it's got to reattach itself. And from what I've seen of your nails, there's no permanent damage there. So they will heal. And now you've found a product that you're not allergic to, but now you know what it feels like when it starts, because an allergy sort of starts with a little sort of feeling, a little niggle, you know, it doesn't just go boom. It you know, it's like, oh, that doesn't feel quite right, which is what happened to you. So now you know what that feels like, you're going to be aware of it. But with any luck, I mean, it's looking good as far as I'm concerned, that's not going to happen, and you can continue to have your nails looked after. And all the while they're growing underneath, and they're growing in a protected environment, clean environment. You say you use oil, keep using oil several times daily, because that helps the nail plate to reattach to the nail bed. Even though you've got a coating on, it can get underneath, and it will keep the nail bed sort of soft and take it back to the sort of soft gooey mass that it's supposed to be. Because it hardens. It's probably quite hard now, isn't it, your nail bed?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, really hard.
That's because it's called nail bed epithelium that's under there, which actually should be gooey, should be wet. And if you lose a nail by accident and it gets ripped off, the nail bed is a bit bloody and gooey and wet. That's how it needs to be. As soon as you expose it to air, it'll harden up a bit like a star, hard skin. So oil will sort of seep underneath and keep that recovering nail bed as soft as it could possibly be. It's like oiling, hard skin, if you like. If you oil it, it'll soften it a little bit and can keep on and on and on, and eventually it will soften. So I think your nails are going to recover. Might take a few months, but in the meantime, now you have this solution, your nails are going to look great.
I hope so.
If you paint
I have nails.
Yeah, you'll have
There'll be
nails.
fake.
You can do your buttons up again and open your dog's can of food. It's a horrible situation. And you know what you said about you didn't know where to go. You've now made me think maybe the federation should start a group for the consumer, not for the nail professional.
100%. I think so. Definitely, what has made me identify or realise is the salon are great, but equally they are very much guided by the advisory departments of the products who the salon use. So I think it'd be really good for salons if they, the staff or like the owner, have a more informed advisory procedure in place to say, like, okay, go to this organization, go to that organization, or go to this forum, and they'll be able to help you, because it just seems like there's so much lack of awareness, like you know, and I get that the salon are guided by the product, the company, but when I spoke to them, they're just awful, just useless. And so all of this has had to be down to myself, and also with help from others. So I definitely think if there's something in place that salons can pass on, you know, even just like a phone number, or go to this organization or the one that you've mentioned, I think would be great, because then people like me can just make contact, or certainly the salon can, and say, right, okay, this is what can and can't do. There just seems to be a massive void.
There is, but you know, interestingly, I mean, one of the first places I would always suggest for a salon is trading standards, because trading standards do need to know about these problems, and the more they know about them, the more that it gives them more sort of leeway to do something about it. But interestingly, the federation, during the month of February, we did a survey on the whole allergy situation, because I'm talking to government offices, and you know, I can say as many times as I can, we've got a problem, we've got an allergy epidemic. But you know, government offices and people like that, they want numbers. You know, they want actual numbers. And so we did a survey during the month of February, and one of the questions in that survey, and actually my article on the survey comes out on Monday, only because the 25th to the 30th of April is a mental health week. Apparently, I didn't know that, so I thought it was like appropriate to put it out there then. And I've got lots of information on the survey. But one of the questions was, and this is for nail professionals, not for consumers. One of the questions was, did you contact any authorities or the brand? You know, did you contact anyone? 93% said no.
That's really shocking.
It's shocking. And so, you know, if the professionals, you know, obviously there's the consumer side, which is you, not just you, because there are hundreds of, you know, similar situations, everyone different because everyone's an individual. But, you know, from the professional point of view, 93%, and we had 600 plus respondents. So it's not a massive amount, but it's good enough to get, you know, a good idea. 600 people is quite a lot. And yet 93% didn't let anyone know. Well, if the brand isn't told, and it is a legal requirement for a brand to keep a record of any issue, any unwanted reaction, or any issue arising from their products, they are legally responsible. They're legally required to keep a record of that, so that if they are questioned by any other authority, they have a complete full record of any contact that they've had. And also, you know, the authorities like environmental health departments and trading standards, if they're not being told, they don't know it's happening. And we know it's happening by the thousand. But, you know, just from that one question, 93% haven't told anybody. So if you haven't told anybody, no one's going to know.
That's really worrying. Yeah.
Isn't it worrying? But I do know in some of the forums I'm on that where nail professionals have had a problem and they have contacted a couple of the companies, they've got nothing, you know, similar to what you've had. They've got no help, no nothing, with the response, it's your fault. You've done it wrong. Okay. You know, a lot of people absolutely haven't done it wrong, and it hasn't been their fault, you know, your salon being one of them. They've done everything they've been required to do. So it's a massive, massive issue. But I mean, I'd like to really, really thank you for being brave enough to come on and tell your story.
No, you're welcome.
Because it is real people with real situations and horrors, basically horrors.
Yeah, I think so for me, because I struggled with like the lack of information and support out there. For me, like doing this interview is about like raising awareness for others who are in my situation, in that you know, there is support out there, there are solutions in place to help you. But you know, it's for me, it was the stress of the lack of information and the lack of support. Whereas now, you know, I've through hundreds of hours of Googling, etc., and speaking to people like you, I've now on a journey of recovery. So yeah, so this interview is really for me, it's to raise awareness. So you're more than welcome.
Thank you so much, Amy. I'm sorry you've had such a horrible time that's been created by the nail sector, because you know that basically all us nail professionals, all we want to do is make people have pretty nails, but healthy and pretty. You know, the health is absolute number one. Healthy first, then pretty. In whatever you feel is pretty. You know, you could feel pretty as like this, you could feel pretty as short with a pale pit, doesn't matter. Whatever you feel is pretty, you know, basically that's all we want to do, is just do that, because we love doing it. And we love the reaction from people, love their nails. But unfortunately, we've got this situation where it doesn't always work out like that. So thank you so much, Amy. I really appreciate your time and sharing your story with us. And you've got the light is there. It's shining brightly at the end of the tunnel. And in a few months' time, you'll have your own strong, healthy nails. I think that is pretty much guaranteed now. But anyway, let's keep in touch, because I want to know the rest of your journey.
Yeah, absolutely, sure.
Okay, thank you so much, Amy. I'm going to stop recording.
No worries. Okay.
Hello, everybody. I would love to introduce you to my good friend Lee Pycroft. And I've worked with Lee on and off for many, many years, because she is actually a renowned makeup artist, but for many years is a qualified and registered psychotherapist. So she is absolutely perfect for this subject, because she knows both sides. She knows about the personal care, she knows about the self-image, she obviously understands all about anxiety. So the whole purpose of this series of little chats, little interviews, whatever you want to call them, is because there's so much discussion, so much information, so much talk about this allergy epidemic that we are in, and it isn't getting any better. So there's lots of anger, there's lots of anxiety, there's lots of uncertainty that is going around all this. And you know, the main focus has been on the ingredients, compliance, whose fault it is. You know, we all know those stories, but the purpose of this little series of interviews is to bring you real stories, is to bring you people that have actually suffered real mental health issues, that have just, you know, brought them to their lowest ebb, because I want to make this situation that we're in real, not just a toxic situation, complaining about products and complaining about the enforcement agencies and all the rest of it. I want you all to understand how real this is and how people have been affected. And Lee she's watched all the videos, and what she's going to do is she's going to sort of answer some things. She wants to give you, all of you, some tools on how to deal with this. She wants to validate these stories, and if you like, normalize them, because they're real, and these are real people that are experiencing this. There are some lovely stories. There's lots of lights at the end of the tunnel. It's not all bad. And I know that Lee is going to be able to give you some very, very good advice, that if or when it happens to you, or if it has happened to you, because it's happened to hundreds, you'll be able to deal with it in a slightly better way. And so, yeah, this is my lovely friend Lee. Her website, which I will add, is leepycroft.co.uk. Please go and look at it, because it's fascinating, and you'll see the sort of things that she's been doing, and you'll see where she's been quoted, because she's been quoted everywhere. She's everybody. She's the beauty journalist darling, because she knows what's what. So thank you so much for doing this, Lee. I so appreciate it, and everybody else will appreciate it too.
Oh my God, it's my absolute pleasure. It's my absolute pleasure. When I was watching back all the videos, I just thought these women have been through so much. And we've all been through a lot, right? Yeah. Over the pandemic. And we were just chatting before this. It's like this layering effect, isn't it? And these stories need to be told. And you're doing such amazing work around raising awareness for the issues, the challenges that these people have been through. And for future people who may bump up against these sorts of challenges, and they'll find a better way to deal with things, you know. Yeah. So we can get going through the stories.
Okay. That's great. So we have 5 people that have been very brave and have come on and had a chat with me. Some of them are anonymous, some of them aren't. So we're going to start with the first guest of mine, who is anonymous. And she is somebody that she's had no reactions. None of her clients have had any reactions. But she has suffered the most incredible anxiety. She's had the fear. She's had intrusive thoughts that she just could not get out of her head. So she's had a long period of time where nothing has happened, but she's waiting for it to happen. So she has felt the fear. And she's had these thoughts that she just cannot get out of her head. She's lost sleep. So Lee, you've watched her, you've watched this, each of the situations are different. So this is somebody that's had no reactions, but has had intrusive thoughts, the fear, the anxiety, where do I go? So what advice would you give her and people like her?
Yeah, it was interesting actually, because she sort of mentioned, actually, just looking at my notes here, that she's learned about the sort of long-term implications of allergies. And so her concerns, it sounded like, started with her imagining what might happen if she infected someone, if her products impacted somebody. And she sort of referred to feeling some sort of guilt and shame around that, and around, you know, would she make a mistake, and wondering, you know, how she would deal with that. And it's an interesting one, because what happens in a situation like this is, because of the emotional arousal and the worry attached to the fear, what this happens in is it leads to like a misuse of a person's imagination. And as creative people, we can be very imaginative, right? That's what, you know, creative nail designs, right? Yeah. We can be really imaginative. But the thing is also, you know, imagination is one of our most powerful resources. And when anxiety happens, which is a natural response to situations, anxiety is there for a reason. It needs some fear and dread and some worry attached to it to really magnify, and it would lead to a misuse of imagination. We start dreaming up all the things that we don't want to have happen. And until we learn to lower the emotional arousal, the feelings that are attached to it, we can then start to deal with the intrusive thoughts. Because often people talk about trying to deal with the thoughts, and they'll sort of say, I keep trying not to think about that thing. I keep trying to push the thought away. But while the emotion is high, which happens when someone is in that sort of emotional state, you know, we're emotional creatures, human beings, then it becomes very difficult to handle intrusive thoughts. So in a situation like that, anyone who was, you know, maybe a bit prone to worrying, maybe a bit prone to anxiety, because about 30% of people will be a bit more prone to struggling with anxiety when under stress, right? And if you think, Marian, that stress is like an accumulation of pressure that's too much for someone to bear. And, you know, having gone through the pandemic and maybe the uncertainty around work, and then this is layered on top, all of a sudden, people are perhaps behaving in a more amplified way than they would ordinarily. So the thing you would do with this, and this will apply to many of the cases we have here, is learning to relax, is learning to lower the impact of the emotional arousal. Because without going into too much detail, if you think of your sort of nervous system, right? You have your alert response, right? Your sympathetic nervous system, the alert response, which is when, you know, it will energize us. Say you're doing some exercise. That's what's keeping you going to get you to move forward. And this is good, right? This is what keeps us, you know, motivated. But when we go too much into this response, we can tip into anxiety. If we tip into overwhelm, worry, rumination, And we need to mobilize the opposite response on our nervous system, which is the calming response. When you're sleepy or you've had a big meal and suddenly you think, oh, I'm going to sit on the sofa and I feel all sleepy and relaxed. That's the opposite, your rest and digest part of your nervous system coming into play. That's what restores us. That's what undoes the work, the anxiety and the alert response. Too much of that will give us. So when someone is worrying, they're ruminating with no solution coming to them, then they're in this sort of emotional loop. So we need to get them to sort of practice breathing techniques. They need to speak to someone who they can be seen and heard with. So they're not just going over the same things, but someone can say, yeah, I can understand that. That's difficult. So they feel heard. And that strangely actually has a very therapeutic effect with people, in that because they're almost completing an emotional loop. Someone, you know, it's like if you've got with a friend, Marian, they sort of tell you something and you say, God, that sounds really awful. I can really get that. Yeah. Like you have with the stories that you've heard. You've sat there and listened to them and you've understood, and that can have a very calming response on people. So I think that that's the first thing. And I mean, interestingly, with her, with the first case, you know, with people who struggle with guilt and with shame, it's almost I sort of think, you know, it's almost a sort of self-imposed sentence they put on themselves. And when they keep saying, I can't let go of the guilt, I can't let go of the shame, you know, shame's slightly different from guilt, but the guilt part, it's kind of like what would need to happen for her to let go of that, to know that she had served her time, you know, and that actually, how can she be of better service to people, which she will be once she starts moving through this. And essentially, all the people in the stories want to take care of other people. They want to be of service. They're in a service industry. Yeah, it's what you do. It's a self-care job, isn't it? It's you know, we care for other people rather. And so with her own self-care, it's what would she need to start believing, and what will be happening when she starts to let go of that guilt, when she starts to let everything calm down and trust that she'll find the right information. She searches for it. She found you. And move through it, you know, and go back to what she loves. If that makes sense.
She uses the term invisible weight, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah.
So she's got to lift that weight, hasn't she?
100%. And then this is the thing. It's like, you know, that is an imagining, and it will be a feeling in her body. You know, she'll be feeling the physiological response to all those imaginings, and the physiological response of being so much in the alert response, too much into in her sympathetic nervous system's too activated. And, you know, when you get yourself into a relaxed state and you can maybe imagine where that weight is in your body, you know, where is she feeling that, you know, because we're a mind-body system, right? And start imagining that weight lightening and starting to dissipate, and it's kind of way over there in the distance. And this can have an amazing impact on starting to sort of, you know, put a new template down, if you like, of how things are going to be in the future, and a new future sort of template, if you like. So it's all about slowing things down, calming things down, you know, whatever that is to that person, whatever helps them relax and just slow it down and sort of, that can be incredibly therapeutic for people. Yeah.
Great. Okay, thanks, Lee. So going on to our next person, who isn't anonymous. She's my guest, and she's called Alison. She has a completely different story to tell. She's the scenario where she had such a severe personal allergy that it came to the point where she could no longer work. Now, there are a lot of people during all of this that have actually lost their careers because it has got to that stage where they can no longer continue. And if they're lucky, they find an alternative career. She has a happy ending story because she did find an alternative career. But imagine, you know, she tells her story about what she went through, and she does get a little bit emotional about this. And one of the bad things, which I know so many people have experienced, and maybe, you know, that there are some comments you can make about this, is that she did do the right thing. She did go to the medical profession, and she got a complete lack of empathy. And they didn't understand what she was going through. It was all a little bit, you know, that's not important. And she did get a correct diagnosis, the wider implications, which she explains in her story, which I won't go over, but it has massively wide implications for these allergies. So, you know, people in that situation where they have to make that decision, that maybe they do have to stop, maybe they do have to pivot, which was a word we used a lot, wasn't it, in lockdown? I don't think anybody imagined we'd be using that word, and I
quite as much, yeah.
didn't imagine that we'd have to use that word with the what's happening with the allergy situation. Anyway, what, you know, for people in that situation, what can you say to them?
You see, I think Alison's story is a real story of hope.
Yeah, it
because
is.
yes, she sort of said, you know, she felt very depressed and anxious when she got the allergy, and there's this sort of long-term implications of that, which is challenging. But she had the sense of, she was able to cultivate a sense of hope and also tap into her resources and think, how can I use what I'm good at and create something new? Because that uncertainty can create a sort of real resistance with people, like they'll recoil from that uncertainty. But the uncertainty can also be a space for creation. And that's where I think Alison's story is really interesting, because she took that uncertainty. She was fearful. She didn't know what to do, but she stepped forward into that uncertain space and thought, actually, I'm going to start doing ceramics, wasn't it? And pottery.
Yeah.
And, you know,
she's got her own
using her
repair
skills
shop
that way.
Yeah.
And she loves it.
Yeah.
And she sort of looks on it now and thinks, actually, I'm repairing these ceramics and pottery. And she gets a lot of joy from it. And I think she is a really hopeful, inspirational story for people who, you know, may need to pivot. They may need to change. And you know, the thing is, Marian, is this is life.
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't it be lovely if it all worked out the way we want it to? But it's usually when we're put on the line like that and we're forced to stretch ourselves and to grow, that actually, you know, we can make a big transformation. You know, we just have to believe in ourselves enough and believe that, you know, we can develop new skills. You know, we can always learn new things. And, you know, and with that, you build more resilience and you can expand your window of tolerance and discomfort, which is a really positive thing, actually, in the long run, I think. You know, so I think those are things worth bearing in mind.
I truly believe, you know, having taught for so long and, you know, learned myself, is that quite often you learn more from wrong things or mistakes or challenges than you ever do from something that goes along nice and smoothly, because what are you learning from that? You're learning that the world is lovely. Well, the world isn't always lovely. And sometimes you've got to step over things, step past things, step around things and find something positive. And she really did, didn't she?
Yeah, she really did. And I think that is life lessons, isn't it? You know, we're going to
and
challenge.
Let it go as well, because, you know, she said in her chat that she absolutely loved what she did. And it was a passion of hers.
Yeah.
And she had to let it go.
Yeah, 100%, you know, and this happens sometimes. You know, we're going to go through life, we're going to lose people we love, there's divorce, there's sort of, you know, pandemics, there's, you know, change in jobs, there's, you know, economic challenges, you know, but the more we can use our resources, our network, show up for ourselves and each other, collaborate, doing the things like you're doing, you know, you're helping your network, you're helping connect people. So other people, the next layer of people, while this is being sorted, we'll have better channels to go down. More stories of hope, more stories of actually, she's done it, I can do it. So I think these are things that help us grow as humans, you know.
It's a lovely story, actually, isn't it? You know, it's like disaster and challenge, going through the tunnel and finding the hope at the end, and finding what is actually working really, really well at the end. So
100%. And you know, when each individual goes through a challenge, with all the people in these stories that have found a way out, you know, they can then are in a position to hold someone else's hand when they go through it and say, hey, listen, you know, there's a way forward. I can show you, you know, and this is a really good thing.
Yeah, I've been there. I understand. No two people are the same. But if you've been in a similar situation, you're going to have a level of understanding, aren't you?
100%. You know, we can only ever sort of hold someone's hand. We can't do things for them.
No,
because that's how people all grow. If we keep trying to solve everyone's problems, they don't get to stretch themselves and grow in their own way, you know.
No, and I'm a big
that.
believer in you do you, I'll do me. You know, that there can be lots of connections and challenge, and you know, like coming together and sharing experiences and the empathy and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, you're you, I'm me.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
100%.
we can still help each other. And I do actually think that is a lovely story. It's quite hard to listen to, especially when, you know, she gets a little bit upset because of what she's lost, but she's come through.
Yeah, 100%.
So our next person, our next guest, who is anonymous, but we've allowed her name, which is Amelia. She had to rebrand. So I mean, each one of these people have had a different story, but it's a story that is common across the whole sector at the moment. There's a lot of people that will relate to each of these because they're all different, but they're all the challenges that people are having to experience right now. So she had to rebrand. She didn't have any issues at all until 21, and in the early stages of it, everybody was really dismissive. Nobody understood from the medical point of view, because there are a lot of things that have happened that nobody's ever seen before. I mean, you know, apart from the fact that the medical profession sort of see painting nails as it's, you know, it's just cosmetic and you just want pretty nails. Well, actually, yes, you know, and from your self-image focus as well, you know how important that is. And we're going to hear a bit more about that later. But she was getting into a stage of constantly checking, looking at her nails all the time. Are they healthy? Are they doing this? Oh, is that a little thing that's going wrong? So she had all of that, and she actually had to go down the route of rebranding. So what about that one? You know, it's similar but different.
I mean, it's a similar thread in that there's the worry cycle. The starting with the worry, the double checking, the amplified anxiety. You know, I think she struggled with anxiety anyway, and it just amplified even more. And I think that, you know, if you're a person that struggles with anxiety, and that's the go-to place you go to when under pressure, where some people might get a skin rash or backache or whatever, some people will go to anxiety. It's really noticing that the start of that, and that it's becoming amplified, and doing whatever she used to do, whatever was in her emotional toolkit to help lower, like we were talking about the emotional arousal, because it's almost like, often referred to it as sort of an inappropriate exercise response when people go into unnecessary anxiety. Because if you think you're running on the treadmill or outside, you're breathing like this, like this kind of thing, you're panting, you're sweating, your stomach might be going, you might be tingly in the hands, all this kind of thing. And that's too much of the alert response, right? But of course, we're burning off, we're doing something when we're running, right? Yes. But often when people get anxious, they're sitting still. You know, they're like this, you know, or they might be pacing or something. So, you know, with her, I think she did the right thing in rebranding, you know, but it's having that toolkit, doing the breathing techniques, getting out in nature, making sure you're sleeping properly, you know, making sure you're getting that relaxation in, to constantly mobilize that relaxation response. And it can be really simple. If you're not a person that likes to sit down and do breathing, there's something called the physiological sigh, which is what's designed by Stanford University. She did a whole thing on it, where basically it's like a real-time breathing technique where you'd breathe in like this, another one, and a long out breath. And what this is doing is you're taking in maximum oxygen and offloading maximum carbon dioxide, because the two inhalations. Carbon dioxide build-up in the bloodstream is what signals the stress response. So you could be doing that while you're on the phone to a friend or just walking to the kitchen. You could be doing it in time with your steps even, you know. So I think when you can implement these sorts of breathing techniques or emotional comforts that will just slow things down for you, then you're just going to start to manage it better. And I think also the other thing,
researching on the internet, because you need to find a new brand, do your research, and maybe that, you know, that simple breathing exercise, do it while you're 100%. Searching, so your anxiety isn't going up like this because you can't find what you want. Exactly. And also, you know, what happens when people are anxious and we go into the stress response is actually the pupils will dilate and our field of vision actually narrows down.
And that's because we're looking at the challenge right in front of us. And actually our peripheral vision kind of goes out of focus. And so actually when you can dial your vision out, just look straight ahead, use your peripheral vision, you're also sending a message back to your nervous system that, you know, you can calm down. You know, you can do that with some breathing, using your body. Because if you think when people are anxious, there's a state of not feeling safe in your body, or jittery, you know, you're kind of hyper alert, or you kind of, some people feel it in their stomach. You know, you can do things like that, dial your vision out, do the breathing, or even if you're a person that really feels really unsafe in your body, you know, you could just cross your hands and very lightly tap. And this is to do with the orientation response in the body, which basically means the nervous system will move towards a new stimuli, if you like. So this can be very soothing for people. Just sitting there, just tapping.
Just gently tapping.
Tapping, tapping, and just breathing and just slowing things down like this as you just let everything soften and soothe. Right? So it's just things you can do. You've got to have your emotional toolkit.
Just literally watching you do that. It's like,
yeah. And
it's
some
like
people, you
things
know,
go. You let things go.
Yeah, it's just let it just only using the muscles you need to use. You know, it's just slow things down. You know.
Wow, I've never done that before, but I'm going to.
Yeah, it's a lovely one. I mean, you know, often if I'm dealing with people who, you know, have PTSD or, you know, trauma, there's all sorts of therapeutic techniques I'll use, but one of the grounding ones, breathing and just slowing down, just helping them feel safer in their body.
Yeah.
You know, there's a feeling of being more contained, you know. So I think, you know, with anxiety and with all these stories, with the anxiety, with the depression, the low mood, it's having a robust emotional toolkit of things that you can use that, you know, work for you. So when it starts to mount, you think, okay, I can pick that one, or I can pick that one, and using them, you know. And also the other thing, Marian, is writing things down, because, you know, anxiety is often sort of comes through the right hemisphere of the brain, the creative part. And when we write things down about, you know, how I'm feeling when I'm anxious, you're having to activate the left hemisphere, which is more about planning and, you know, logical thought and this kind of thing. And it can help actually reduce the physiological arousal. You know, some people find it's a bit like journaling. Some people find it hugely therapeutic to write things down and to sort of dump it on a page. So that's another thing, you know, that you know, she could have in her emotional toolkit as well.
Writing things down and sort of letting it, like ticking it off by doing that, letting it go because you've written it down.
Yeah, and it can, you know, and some people write it down and screw it up and throw it in the bin.
Yeah,
you know, because there's something, there's something in that ritual, because
something quite cathartic about that, isn't there?
Yeah, and also if you think about anxiety and rumination and depressive sort of feelings, is the rumination is like a lot of unfinished emotional threads in the mind that are not having any resolution. They're just going round and round and round.
Yeah.
You know, and when you can reacquaint the brain with some pleasant task that has a beginning, middle, and end, it can actually be a thread that it can resolve. You know, so maybe, you know, you're, and also like your if she's going on the internet and she's sort of seeking something, and she's going on, she's giving herself 10 minutes and then she's coming off. You go for a walk, you're going out the door, you're going for the walk, you're coming back, or you bake a cake, you know, something that you find pleasurable, that is not sort of going to ignite the stress response anymore, or get you to rallied. So all these things are little
down
things.
that wormhole that there's no way out, is it? It's like looking down the wormhole, but then stepping away from it for a little while.
Yeah, it's knowing, kind of knowing your body, knowing where you feel it, what are the first signs, and starting to implement the tools. So, okay, you know, I need to step back, because we live in such a busy culture, right? And we celebrate the busyness, right? We celebrate, you know, how are you, Marian? Oh, I'm so busy. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so busy. Yeah. But actually this multitasking busy thing is not good overall for focus, for concentration, for anxiety. And actually, when we can slow down, put pauses into the day, take a step away, go for a walk, do some breathing, relax, make sure we're hydrated, get an afternoon nap if you need it. All of these things can actually help you be more productive and focused, even though you're doing it in a shorter time frame, because the brain isn't meant to just keep churning stuff out. It needs a break to sort of absorb what you've just learned.
Well,
Yeah.
Amelia, it sounds like at the moment she hasn't got the perfect solution, but she's sort of a little bit in denial still, but she's hanging in there. You know, she knows that she knows what she's got to do, and she's hopeful that she will be able to do it, but she hasn't found the perfect solution yet. But our next guest, who is Kim, she's had another big allergy. Her story actually quite shocked me, because during her story she told me something that she hadn't originally told me, and I was like, oh wow, you know, massive. But she is one that has been through a long and very, very dark tunnel, in that she's the breadwinner for her family. She has 3 young children. She lost clients all over the place. She had an allergy. She discovered she had to turn clients away because you know, a good new source of clients is when you have somebody from another salon that hasn't had a great experience, and they come to you for whatever reason, and you can really turn them around and, you know, bring their loyalty to you. But she discovered that she lost that avenue of new clients because of her allergy. And then her story went on to the most horrendous thing, that it was also bad. She had a heart attack. I mean, no real, she didn't have any reason for it, but she's fairly sure that certainly the stress added to it. She does have a light at the end of that tunnel, but what a long dark tunnel she had to travel. Now there are a lot of people that are going to watch this that are still right in the middle of that tunnel. So is there anything, you know, in addition to what you said, the great advice you've given so far, is there anything in addition you can say to them?
I mean, I think the other, you know, she was actually, I'm just looking at my notes again here, she was mentioning that she did find a brand, didn't she?
Yes,
who she thought the training was fantastic. And she was saying that she was really impressed with all of the way they had conducted themselves and the level of education. And I think that it's interesting, you know, she talks about this heart attack, which has been so difficult for her, you know, in this sort of chronic unaddressed stress, you know. And I think that really it's much, again, what we've been saying, Marian, it's really having that emotional toolkit. I'm not sure there's anything more to add to her story. The only thing I would say that I think can be quite helpful when we were talking about the, you know, emotional arousal and the tendency to then have extreme thoughts, is there is a particular sort of thinking pattern as well, which some people can move towards, which isn't a very helpful one. It's what's called the 3 Ps. And this particular thinking style is when people make something that happens to them very personal, they make it pervasive and they make it permanent. Now, why am I telling you this? Because if someone makes something, say something happens, say an allergy, someone gets an allergy from your products, you blame it all on yourself, you take it all in, you absorb all of it, it's all your fault, right? They personalize it and they hold it all in, rather than thinking, actually, okay, what was my part? What belonged out there, right? The other thing is they make it pervasive. So they'll say, well, this awful thing has happened and it's taken over every area of my life, rather than this awful thing has happened and I have, you know, a great family, and I still have, you know, great friends, and I can still go out walking in nature, and I can still have my bath in the evening, whatever it is that you love to do. And they'll make it permanent. Like, this is never going to change. I'm always going to be stuck here. This is a nightmare. It's a disaster. And this language we use to express something will create an emotional response. And of course, when someone's emotionally aroused and they're using, you know, they're in extreme thinking, if you listen to the language, they'll say it was a complete nightmare, you know, my whole life's over. And this language isn't always very helpful when you link it back to the 3 Ps. And often I'll say to clients, have the 3 Ps written on your desk and think, actually, if I'm really going into something, I'm going down that wormhole, as you say, that rabbit hole, am I making this, am I in the 3 Ps? Am I making this all my fault? Am I eating too much of the blame pie? You know, am I making it apply to every area of my life? And am I applying a permanence to it? Because when we can start to notice those behaviors in ourselves, we can bring things into our line of awareness. And when it's in our line of awareness, we can think, okay, hang on a minute, I'm doing that thing, that pattern of thinking that I do. And actually, is that really true? And is that helpful to me right now? Or is it just exacerbating the issue? And, you know, when we can sort of see the impermanence of things, you know, that all these stories, it was a period of time they've gone through. It's not easy. It's not been, you know, it's been difficult, and some are still going through it, but some are maybe 10% better, 20% better. Some are at the other side. So I think that thinking style amongst the relaxation techniques can be really helpful to people.
Yeah, absolutely. That are still, you know, stuck in that tunnel. Well, she's a lovely, happy ending, isn't she? Because, you know, she had all of that awful stuff, but now she's happy. She's rebranded. She's got amazing, she's, you know, the brand that she's chosen are being fantastic to her. Her confidence has come back. She's earning a living for her and her 3 children. She's got over her health issues, so she's a very happy ending, isn't she? Which is
she's another story of hope, isn't she?
Absolutely, a total story of hope. And you know, absolute success, and you know, she's done it, which must be amazing. And you know, she was amazing that she could share her story and take herself back to those dark times and share it with us. So the last guest I had is we've had 4 nail professionals so far. The last guest is a client, and a client that has been through a nightmare that is a very personal nightmare to her. She had PTSD. She had very bad PTSD for various reasons in her past. She spent 4 years fighting that and trying to get her life back together, get herself back together, get her to the place that she wanted to be. She had to leave a career and find a new career. And, you know, 4 years of counselling, etc., as she tells in her story. And she was there. She got there. She was loving her job. Everything was great. And then she had her nails done, and she had an absolute nightmare. And, you know, from telling her story, it took her right back to the beginning of her PTSD. She does have a happy ending, only just, I mean, literally just as we're talking now. Her happy ending is good. It's, you know, she's found it. But good grief, what a place to be in, to take yourself back to a nightmare.
I mean, I think the thing is, I think people who have complex PTSD can be a bit more prone to, if they experience something they find incredibly stressful or traumatic, of activating that again. You know, PTSD is complicated, and you know, you can have someone who has PTSD and it's one incident that's happened. And for those, you know, just to sort of give a bit of context around PTSD, it's really when someone experiences something that they consider to be life-threatening, that they can't get away from, that they feel helpless in. And about, you know, 20% of people who experience a traumatic incident will go on to develop PTSD. The rest of people will actually process it as a narrative, as a memory. But with PTSD, it's really, the emotional context of the story becomes embedded in what you call the emotional centers of the brain, if you like. So people will pattern match to anything that is remotely similar to that incident. So they'll become hyper alert, they'll have flashbacks, they won't sleep, you know, they will be, you know, just, it's a really, really difficult thing to deal with. And there's lots of sort of therapeutic ways of addressing it. But I really felt for her, because I thought that this is obviously something, her nails was something that she really associated a lot of pleasure and joy with. And in some ways, I got a sense that she sort of, her identity of how she wants to be seen with her nails was very tied up with that. And when that went, she was like, well, you know, what part, who am I, kind of, and how can I live with these? And it's sort of that stress that she associated with that. You know, she brought back a lot of things that perhaps she had dealt with in the past, but reactivated them. Now, of course, you know, she's obviously been through a lot of counselling, which she's spoken about, and she'll readdress it and things will calm down again. But I think, you know, in a situation like hers, you know, getting the right help is going to be really important. Managing stress a lot, making sure she's getting, you know, good help and support and sleep. It sounds like she's got a lot of good people around her. You know, and she is on the way to finding the solution, you know, which I think again is another story of hope, isn't it? But I think hers was a particularly
story of hope.
difficult for her, because complex PTSD is, as I said, these layers of different traumatic incidents rather than one isolated incident that then leaves someone with PTSD. So it's a bit like if you deal with someone with complex PTSD, it's like layers of an onion, you know, that you have to sort of recondition the memories, the association, so it's re-tagged as a safe memory, essentially, is what you do in therapeutic terms.
She did have you know, what caused the PTSD in the first place was life-threatening.
Yes, it was,
and horrific. But I think when the very first time I spoke to her, I didn't speak to her about this little project. It was another reason she needed some help. And the first time I spoke to her is that she recognized some of those feelings that she's had, you know, in the past 4 years onwards. She recognized some of them, which, you know, maybe somebody that hasn't had that wouldn't recognize, you know, they just think, oh, this is horrible, but there's no recognition there. Whereas she'd had it and she could feel those same feelings coming, you know, they were down here, she was dealing with them and she could feel them, you know, this isn't how she described it, this is how I'm visualizing it. She could feel them coming up, like, you know, coming up and thinking, I know what that is and I know where that's going to go, you know, that's going to go up to here. And so she was in this horrible situation. And actually, I think, you know, I think that sort of comes across is she used that energy that was being taken by those feelings in doing her research and trying to find I have to find an answer. I'm going to keep going until I find an answer. And then she did find an answer and she has found it. And I've spoken to her since then and she has found her answer and it's turned around. She's still got a way to go, but it's turned around. But this is what, you know, I really wanted to have a client. I didn't want to put somebody through the memory of all of that, but this, you know, with this situation, this is what this situation is doing to people that we want to make feel good and we want them to make feel better about themselves. And this situation is creating that. And it's horrific.
Which gives even more credibility to you doing the work you're doing, you know.
Well, and why our other stories are so real, and the many hundreds of stories that are out there that I hope will be watching this and get some insight into how to manage it. You know, your toolkit and your different exercises and the physiological understanding. You know, this is what is happening, and you can see why it's happening. And
absolutely,
you know, we're doing it. Just because people want pretty nails, you know, which is a complete nonsense.
Totally. Yeah. So I think, you know, like we're saying, the emotional toolkit, you know, looking at things you can do to tap into your biology to help lower emotional arousal, look at new thinking styles, making sure you've got your support system, and, you know, and that's about as much you can do, controlling the controllables, isn't it, Marian? It's like, you know, doing what you can do. You know, and looking after yourself and going, and then, you know, hopefully going back to what you love and what you're great at and helping other people feel good about themselves, which is, you know, wonderful. Okay, well, thank you, Lee. I've taken up more than enough of your time, more than you said that you could give. So thank you so much. I know that this is going to be incredibly helpful to a lot of people that are still in that tunnel. They haven't found the light yet. When I say the light, I mean, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel. They haven't found their solution yet. So I'm sure the tools that you've suggested, understanding the biology of it, as you say, and, you know, just as you say, look after yourself. So thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it. And I know a lot of other people are going to. Lee's website will be a link, but it is leepycroft.co.uk. Have a look at it. It's fascinating. And you can see how lovely she is. And she's one of us. she comes from the personal care beauty industry, so she knows what it's like to want to make people look good and therefore feel good. Absolutely.
And you've gone more down the feeling than the looking.
Yes.
Which
But it's all interlinked, isn't it? You know, it's a two-way conversation.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's my absolute pleasure. It was lovely chatting to you, and I hope, you know, people who watch it find something in there that resonates, and I wish everyone well.
Thank you so much, Lee. I'm going to stop recording now. Thank you again.